Hello and welcome back to the Unforced Error for a brief recap of round three. So we're about halfway through the tournament, and this time next week we'll know the women's champion, and we will be gearing up for the men's final. So it's about 20 to 5 here in Ireland, so it makes it in the middle of the night in Melbourne. Once again, lots to catch up on, so we'll try and fly through them a bit quicker this time and not talk as much about everything, but just try and stick to the highlights. And yeah, we're in the second week now, so it's time to take a breath. It's getting down to the serious business now. So hope we've all get a chance to catch up on a bit of sleep over the weekend if you're watching it late at night and stuff like that. So, but much looking forward. A very dramatic first week, and really looking forward to the second week. So, without further ado, let's get straight into the men's first. Andrei Rublev beat the British man Dan Evans in a kind of routine win for Rublev, and Dan Evans is seeded very high. Would have been probably seeded higher than you would think, but Rublev was able to pass by him. Tsitsipas sets up a great fourth round. He beat Talan Grekaspor and is looking very confident and speaking very calmly and wearing a very cool shirt. And there's a bit of a backstory about that. So he's kind of into research about the heritage of Australia, and he's a bit of a photographer as well. So he's got interesting stuff going on off the court as well. But looks and is talking very confidently indeed. If we go to the Aussies, Alex de Minaur beat Bonzi, and Popyrin losses to the American Ben Shelton, who's having a great tournament and largely unknown. He's an American. He's played a lot of college tennis, and I think this is his first time playing competitively outside the US, and is on a real run. Very entertaining to watch. Got a lot of great shots, and has talked a couple of. There's been a lot of talk about the fans, and in Australia they love their sport there, but oftentimes there's an incident with Djokovic's game the other night, getting involved with games, and but he said on the circuit in American college tennis, the fans are a lot more, there's a lot more colourful language used and stuff like that, so he's used to those kind of high pressure you know situations, even though he hasn't played competitively outside the US. So he's doing really, really well, and definitely one to watch. But the big games are probably the biggest shock of the third round on the men was Sebastian Corda, the American whose two sisters are pro golfers, beat Daniil Medvedev. And Corda beat him kind of with his all-round game. And Corda's been knocking on the door for a while, and has always had a great game. Has been stuck in a lot of kind of long matches in Grand Slams, and usually makes it into a couple of rounds, but has rarely gone past the first week. So this would definitely be the biggest win of his career. And Medvedev spoke very honestly after. He's had a tough time. He's dropped the rankings a lot last year. So he lost to Nadal in last year's final, and he didn't play at Wimbledon, and he suffered with injuries and struggled to get back into it. So, Medvedev is still definitely a top five player, but hasn't played like one, or had the opportunity to play with like one as well for a long time. He was very honest, but all credit to Sebastian Corda, huge win and a very impressive all-round game, in a game with a lot of high quality. So really delighted for him. So the Americans and the Canadians going well so far in the men's. Novak beat Dimitrov. Dimitrov was just a bit too rash. He gave him a good game. It was three sets, but it was a tough three sets. It was certainly not a rollover by any chance. Dimitrov just hit too many unforced errors. I try not to use the show's name unironically too much, but he did hit a lot of winners as well. And Djokovic was still kind of back and forth in the hamstring, did have to take an injury timeout at one point, but was subsequently okay. And the last game then, Andy Murray lost to Bautista Agut, the Spanish. I think he's ranked 23rd. But realistically, as I said, the rankings are a bit off after last year. But is probably, you'd call him a top 20 player ish. has been around for a long time, is what I'm trying to say. It's surprising to most of us that Andy Murray can even walk after his first 2 rounds, but it was a game of tremendous high quality as well. And it kind of seemed in the first set that Murray was out and tired and not a lot of energy left, which you could understand. But he fought back valiantly as he has in the first 2 games. But just ultimately just didn't have enough. But the quality was high, and Batista Agut played a very, very high quality game, and the crowd were all for Murray, as you'd expect, and as right. But it's a tough situation. You know, I know I mentioned the last time Tomljanovic playing against Serena or playing against Nadal or whatever. You know, it's a tough situation for that other person. But Batista is the consummate professional, and really served the game out and won the pressure points in that fourth set. So all credit to him. But Andy Murray's definitely been the story of the first week, especially on the men's side. You know, what he's done was nothing short of incredible, and he's as tough out. You know, between some points he was, you know, bent over with tiredness, and amazing the show they both put on. So all credit to Murray. Hopefully we see him playing more competitive tennis as he's up for, because he was absolutely amazing. But all credit to Batista, a professional who's been on the tour a long time and is probably not as flashy or as marketed or as entertaining as some other players, but is hardworking and a really, really great player. So that kind of runs off round 3 for the men, and we look forward to round 4. We'll go on to the women then. A lot happened on the women's side as well. Belinda Bencic beat Camila Giorgi. She relied in a tough game as well. She kind of relied on her serve. Her second serve was very solid as well. And Camila Giorgi, a great player, but just had one or too many unforced errors. But was brave, and it was a great game. And Bencic will now play Aryna Sabalenka, who beat Elise Mertens. Sabalenka has not dropped a set yet and is almost undefeated in 2023 so far. I know we're only in January. She's very calm and collected and playing, as she said in her press, she's almost become a bit more boring on purpose. And you know, those are not words you typically associate with Sabalenka, but that's what she's had to do, you know, to get more successes, to rain down on her unforced errors and try and suppress her emotions on court that bit more. So expressing the positive emotions a lot, but kind of reining in the negative emotions so far. I think she had single-digit unforced errors, which is unusual for her. So she's playing great tennis, playing with a lot of positivity, and her power is still there. She was holding the centre of the baseline a lot and picking her spots. So it's going to be an amazing fourth round against Belinda Bencic, who she knows very well. So really interesting to see, you know, as the rounds progress, she will be under pressure at some point to see if she can still hold that negative emotions in and keep it all together. So really excited to see her doing so well. Yelena Ostapenko took Bandel in straight sets. Victoria Azarenka beat Madison Keys in a great game, as we thought it would be. Used her experience, got off to a very slow start, but broke her way back into the game and ultimately won. So that was a great game. Iga Swiatek outclassed the Spanish Buxa and just was very disciplined and didn't have much trouble at all. Barbara Krejcikova, excuse me again for the pronunciations, beat Kalinina. Krejcikova won the a long time doubles player. She won Roland Garros the year before last, and kind of comes in and out of Grand Slam. She's very good on hard surfaces and a very dangerous player. Often goes under the radar, but a former Grand Slam champion and many time doubles champion. Doubles is usually her forte, so watch out for her. Rubianka, speaking of former Grand Slam champions, beat Danielle Collins. So in both the men's and the women's, we're going to have a totally new final because the winner and the runner-up in both tournaments are now out or aren't competing. Urbienka won Wimbledon last year, but she seeded 22. But the rankings were not in play at Wimbledon last year, so realistically, that's a bit higher. And she's a very strong serve, and um, yeah, so it was a tough game. She got off to a great start. Danielle Collins came back in the second set as she always does. You never beat Danielle Collins easy, especially not in Melbourne. So it's going to be I think believe she's playing Iga Swiatek as well in fourth set. So that's going to be an absolute cracker. I know it'll probably again be in the middle of the night, but an absolute cracker to watch in the fourth round. Jessica Pegula was relatively straightforward against Kostyuk, young Ukrainian, but Kostyuk was just a bit nervous and just didn't get into it. But near the end, just showed her talent. She's a kind of junior champion, and there's a lot of talk around her talents, and kind of showed at the end that she's a bright future ahead of it, because some of the shots she was playing at the end were unbelievable, and if she was playing that from the start, it'd be a totally different game. But Jessica Pegula is steamrolling through and hasn't expended too much energy so far, but is playing a lot of doubles as well on the side, so she is spending a lot of time on court. Coco Gauff had no trouble getting through. Garcia got through in a tough game, and Xu beat Maria Sakkari in another high quality game, and her defensive backhand was amazing against a very aggressive Sakkari, and her kind of forehand down the line did the trick for her there as well. So not a shock, Xu is kind of on the rise, but a very emotional win for her. She's a great story, and we will talk about that again. But I do believe as well Maria Sakkari will be very disappointed. I do believe this woman has a Grand Slam in her at some point. So watch out for her, especially on clay. She's very she's stronger, probably stronger on clay. Would fancy her chances at, but made the semi-final 2 years ago. But a great player, a great game by the two of them. And but Xu, just her defense and her forehand down the line, there was not a lot Sakkari could do in some instances. So that's it. That's a brief recap of round 3, and roll on round 4, roll on the second week. And as always, thanks a million if you're watching, and we'll see you very soon. And take a breath and let's get excited. All right. Bye.